When the sheriff rolled in with 3 bulldozers and a court order, I watched the steel cable snap and the concrete posts crumble like they were made of chalk, and Karen, queen of laminated notices and HOA fines, just froze. That was the moment everything shifted, the moment I knew this fight was finally tipping back in my favor. But getting there nearly broke me. When I inherited the farm, the old dirt road wasn't even on the HOA's maps. My father called it the back vein because it carried everything from seed deliveries to his own casket when we laid him to rest under the oak tree on the hill. For decades it worked just fine, a quiet brown ribbon that only mattered during harvest season and then sat forgotten the rest of the year. Nobody asked for permission because it wasn't theirs to grant. That land was ours long before the subdivision existed, long before the HOA built their storm pond and their pretty cul-de-sacs. I wasn't part of the HOA. My farmhouse sat just outside their lines, but that dirt road cut across a sliver of their managed land, and apparently that gave them just enough rope to try and hang me with it. At the center of it all was Karen Delaney, blonde hair, lemon sweater, clipboard glued to her hands. 6 terms as president because nobody else had the energy to fight her. She ran that place on exhaustion, everyone too tired, too scared, or too busy to push back. I kept to myself. I ran my farm. Until one September morning, boots wet with dew, coffee in hand, I found a bright red sign hammered into the earth like a battle flag. No through traffic. HOA controlled road. Trespassers will be reported. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a mistake. They'd branded my access road with their logo. And right on cue, I heard her golf cart humming down the hill. She didn't even wave, just pulled up, looked at me like I was trespassing on my own land, and said flatly, "You can't run trucks through here anymore." The board voted. Noise ordinance? She handed me a letter already folded and stapled. She had planned it. I tried to argue, said this road had been in use longer than she'd been alive, but she just shrugged. "Maybe you should have paved it if you wanted to keep it." And then she drove away. The next morning the road was chained shut. 2 fresh posts in the ground, thick chain, new padlock. My first truck of the season had to turn around. The crew stood there staring at me, waiting for instructions I couldn't give. Every day of delay meant wheat losing value, contracts falling apart, workers leaving. That first week alone cost me thousands, and it didn't stop there. Karen smelled blood. Citations piled up. $250 for unauthorized vehicle staging. $500 for soil erosion, $750 for noise pollution. My grain trailer sitting on my own field was suddenly a violation. She stalked the property line with her phone out, filming workers like they were criminals. 2 of them quit on the spot, and just when I thought it couldn't get worse, she had contractors pour concrete posts across the easement. Actual barricades like a war zone drying in the sun. That's when I cracked. One night I sat in the barn while rain hammered the roof and watched thousands of dollars of wheat rot in the fields. I ran the numbers, looked at the fines, and whispered into the dark, "Maybe she's right. Maybe I should just give up, sell the land, move away." For the first time since Afghanistan, I felt hollow, like I'd already lost. But then I remembered who I was. I remembered convoy routes through minefields, negotiations in desert towns, building logistics in places where the cost of failure was more than money. I'd fought harder fights than this. Was I really going to let a woman with a laminated name tag destroy my family's legacy? No, not again. I dug through my father's old files. Easement maps, notarized agreements, yellowed blueprints from the 70s, all proving that road was legally protected. I called a land use attorney. I called my old neighbor Dale, a retired cop. And finally, I reached out to Sheriff Morales, my brother-in-arms from the service. I laid the evidence on his desk, and he looked me in the eye. "You're in the right, but she's not going to give up easy." And she didn't. She doubled down, brought in surveyors, plastered new signs, even tried to tow my equipment with a company whose contract had expired years ago. She was bluffing, but bluffing loud. That's when Morales stepped in for real. He filed a complaint, brought it before a judge, and within days he had a temporary injunction. The morning the bulldozers rolled down that hill, the sky was gray heavy with rain. My fields were hanging by a thread. Karen was already waiting, arms crossed, lips pressed so tight they'd gone pale. Her golf cart sat behind her like a discarded chariot. Morales stepped out of his SUV holding the order. "The road is yours," he said. And with a single wave, the first dozer pushed forward. The blade hit concrete with a thunderous crack. The chain snapped back like a whip. Karen screamed not words, not even sentences, just raw broken sound. She shoved papers at Morales, shouting, "This is community land, you're destroying property." He didn't flinch. "Ma'am, step back. This action is backed by the court." She froze, clipboard shaking in her hands, watching her wall crumble. By the time the third dozer cleared the debris, the road stretched wide open, gravel, fresh drainage, regraded, reflective markers gleaming. My road wasn't just back, it was official. Neighbors gathered along the tree line, silent at first, then clapping slow and steady. Not for me, not even for the harvest, for the end of her reign. That same week, signatures flew through the subdivision. A recall petition. Enough was enough. At the emergency HOA meeting, Karen tried to regain control, snapping her gavel and insisting she had saved property values, that without her the neighborhood would collapse. But when my attorney stood up and read the court order aloud, the room turned. One by one, hands raised, voices shouted, and the vote was unanimous. Karen Delaney was suspended on the spot. Her keycard revoked. Her clipboard useless. She sat frozen in her chair, jaw trembling as people filed past without even looking at her. And I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I just stood there calm and steady, because the fight was never about revenge, it was about reclaiming what was already mine. The lesson: bullies only win when you let them.